I'd like to call this meeting of the Oconee County Planning Commission to order. Today is Monday, March 4th, and ready to get started. Can I ask you to say the invocation?
Yes, sir. Pray with me if you will. Heavenly Father, we ask you please watch over this committee and the planning staff and guide us to wise and safety-conscious decisions in support of the public. We also ask that you watch over the county law enforcement, first responders, and other county workers as they perform their duties, that they may return home safely to their families after every shift. And we also ask that you please watch over the county and state leaders as they work to make the county and state a better place to live each day. In his name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And let's ask if you lead it.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next up is the approval of the minutes from February 22nd. Can I get a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Second. Are there any changes or additions or corrections? It all looks good to everybody? All right, let's vote. All those in favor of approving these, say aye.
Aye.
Yes, sir. Before we go further on into the commissioner comments, I would like, because there are so many people here and so many people signed up for the development standards conversation, and no one signed up for the Planning Commission goals and objectives for 24. I would like to push that off, that item number 7, off to a future meeting.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
All right, so we're going to push 7 off. All right, as far as commissioner comments, I'd like to start by saying thanks. I'd like to start by saying welcome. Also want to say that the circus train bringing the elephants and the giraffes did not make it, so it's just the group up here to entertain you for the evening.
Need public comments for non-agenda items.
Okay, yes, sir, sorry about that. Got ahead of myself. I wanted to say that at first, as far as the welcome to the group. So next up is the non-agenda items as far as public comments. We have Sharon DeRuyter.
You guys do the timing like the council. Sharon DeRitter, District 1. Good evening, commissioners. There was a sign put out along Rochester Highway 130 over a week ago or so, and this morning, I noticed that it was taken down. So some of these people in here might be because of that, because we're trying to, I know change is inevitable, I know that. But out of this 746 acres that this development or developer or developers want to do, you'll see on an attachment that we have that Water's Edge reserves 64 acres or 65 acres. They only want to have 1.32 acres of park area, okay? There's a Bay Shore, Keowee River has 212 acres, and then Mariners Village has 138 acres, and the Pinnacle of Keowee River wants to do 331 homes, and it's over about 1,800 dwellings. Could be homes, apartments, condos, and then there's also commercial space, which will probably go right on Rochester Highway, which a lot of us in this room don't want to see that happen. But there's probably going to have to be a traffic study, and I'm going to tell you that traffic studies are paid by the developer, and who's going to benefit from that traffic study is not this county. It's going to be the developer saying there's no impact for water, for traffic, we don't need any more traffic lights, we don't need any turn-ins, and I will tell you that DOT, even last week, told me that they will not ever widen that Rochester Highway 130 to 4 lanes, because they can't, because of the bridge by Duke and also the 2 earthen dams for Lake Keowee. So, I mean, I would like to see the county buy some of that land up or give it to the county, and let's put a county park there, because we don't have a county park on that side of, we have South Cove, and we have High Falls, but we don't have a park. So, soccer fields, baseballs, that would be better utilized instead of trying to put 300 units or something, however some of these are. And then the height requirements, they're going to do, I don't know how the height is going to be, and I don't know what the aesthetics is going to look like. In there now is all pine trees. I don't know, 80, 95% is pine trees. That developer is going to say, this is great, let's just mow it all down. I don't need to put trees up because there was no trees worthy of being kept there. Maybe there's a couple oak trees, I don't know. So, some of us got on board because of the next door app, because I hadn't heard about this. So I didn't know if it came before you guys and it was declined, or that the developer took it down and got so many comments from whoever contacted them, or maybe, I don't know. So we put out the announcement to everybody along from Salem all the way down to Old Clemson Highway, because you got to deal with the water pressure there. Because if you put 1,800 dwelling units, that's probably 2-point-something people per unit. So that's 3,000. Someone said it said 6,000. I can't imagine how many cars that's going to be. 6,000 cars? I don't know, on that road. So we got fire. You got law enforcement having to be dealt with there. I don't know if they'll even have to put up a water tower because they don't have the pressure. So all I'm saying is change is inevitable. We understand that. But we don't want to see 1,800 dwelling units in that area. Thank you very much.
We've got a lot of folks here tonight and a lot of folks signed up. I am going to ask that we hold to the 4-minute time limit. I'll give everybody a notice of a minute when it's left, and the red sign when it's done. Also, while there is cause for applause, we'll try to keep that as quick as possible so that we can get through this evening. Next up for non-agenda items, and we'll be discussing a lot of this under development standards, but non-agenda items, Jeff Sills.
Am I allowed to give out handouts?
You can give them to James.
Well, I had one for this.
Go ahead. You can go ahead.
Of course, I'm Jeff Sills. I'm in District 1. I'm a native of Oconee County. And I never thought I'd be up here asking this question. First of all, I'm not here to be an advocate for gun control. All right? I believe every individual that is legally entitled to should own a gun. But just like the lady in front of me said, we're developing all these homes and everything's just getting congested. And Oconee County has no gun laws, according to our sheriff's department. Like I say, Oconee County doesn't have any such laws, according to the sheriff's department. The only such laws I could find is a bill from 1976, which has been amended in 2018, which is the first 2 pages y'all have of the handout. And also, the next 3 pages is a North ordinance. And then the last single page is a county law from Richland County, South Carolina, which is the only county law I could find in this state, which basically states that let me get to it here. Within 200 yards of the property boundaries of any school, it shall be unlawful for any person in the unincorporated areas of the county to discharge any rifle, gun, pistol, revolver, or other similar instrument from or by means of which a bullet, shot, or other missile of any kind may be projected within 200 yards of the property boundaries of any school. The subsection shall not apply to the lawful defense of any property. Within 300 yards of the property boundaries of any dwelling, business, or subdivision, It shall be unlawful for any person in the unincorporated area of the county to discharge any rifle, gun, pistol, revolver, or other similar instrument from or by which any bullet, shot, or other missile of any kind may be projected within 300 yards of any building used as a dwelling or subdivision. And it goes on to define the sections and codes. The first part y'all have there, the bill, it talks about the same. If you'll look at, down there where it says, whereas, it is in the best interest of our citizens to protect their wealth, welfare, and safety by requiring owners of property who choose to discharge firearms on their property or allow others to discharge firearms on their property to put in place minimal appropriate safety measures. And then if you'll turn the page over to where it says 3B, it says it is unlawful for a person who owns property or who is the lawful occupant of the property located in the unincorporated areas of the state to engage in the discharge of firearms on his property, or who permits such activity involving the discharge of a firearm by others on his property without appropriate safety measures in place. This provision is in the section applied to activities including but not limited to target practice or target shooting. A person who violates this provision of this section is guilty of misdemeanor and upon conviction must be fined no more than $500 or imprisoned no more than 30 days. We have had a lot of trouble in our area of an individual shooting with his target placement about 25 yards from my back door. I'm sorry.
Mr. Sills, thank you very much. Sorry to cut you off, and I'm glad you were able to get that last part out.
Okay.
Next up, Craig Whitman for non-agenda items.
Good evening, and my name is Craig Whitman. I guess I'm District 1, just kind of picking back what Mr. Sills was just speaking to. Also very much a rookie in front of folks like you, so thank you for hearing me. It was a bit of a surprise to me to learn that there was no statute or law or whatever it may be called for discharging a firearm near homes. And I am very much a Second Amendment advocate and am not looking to restrict that at all with law-abiding people. But this particular situation is someone is firing downstream, downhill, in what ends up, the lake is behind it, and there are about 8 docks right through there. Someone who is trained properly knows better, but people don't always do what they're supposed to do. And so that's problematic. And unfortunately, our law enforcement can't do anything about it because there's no law or ordinance on the books for our county to protect them or to give them anything. So they've gone by and done due diligence, talked to this individual to no avail. So we're just asking that, and I don't know what the process or procedure would be, but we need to do something, I think, as we continue to grow as a community and more people come in, because it's just not proper. There's one time for firing a firearm on your own personal property if that's somebody's coming to do you harm or your family harm. And other than that, we don't need it with children and just anybody out and about. So thank you for your time and consideration, and I'm happy to talk further about it if there's something that needs to be done to create a subcommittee to talk about it or whatever. I don't know the process. And so again, I'm a rookie, but I do thank you for your time.
Mr. Whitman, thank you. There was no one else signed up for non-agenda items, but is there anyone else that was trying to get signed up that came in late? All right.
I've got one, Mike. Sir. Right there.
Yes.
Will Trailer, District 1.
If you'll say it one more time.
My name's Will Trailer, District 1.
Okay.
Neighbors of some of the following people. First Amendment, or Second Amendment advocate. Don't believe in restricting firearms and things that are necessary for a free society. but there's a proper way to discharge a firearm. You don't discharge one downhill with no backstop, where a stray bullet could very easily hit someone negligently. Shouldn't be firing 20, 25 yards off of somebody's back door. Not only is it improper etiquette, it's improper use of a firearm. So those of us who've been trained wouldn't do that, and it's a shame that we don't have a law that can at least curtail that improper use. So that's my statement.
Thank you so much. All right, that ends our non-agenda item, public comment. Do we have any commission member comments at this time? Yes, sir.
I'd like to comment on the gun ordinance, proposed gun ordinance discussion. It is a sad thing that we have people that create the need for laws. That's where we are, unfortunately. My question is I guess Mr. Seals provided a package. So we have a state law that doesn't cover this either?
Can I answer that?
Yes, please.
We
But
have called the sheriff's department out at least a dozen times, and they have not done anything but other than talk to the individuals. According to them, there is no county law, so they can't do anything.
But what about this? Is this state law enacted?
I showed them the state law, and they kind of blew me off like I didn't know what I was doing, but you know my background,
Yes, I do.
so you know I know what I'm talking about.
Would the state law, if applied, would the state law, should the state law, if applied, restrict what's going on?
I think it should, the way it reads.
So is this something we need to take up with law enforcement?
It sounds like
Try to help, see if they can enforce?
And if you want to look at those pictures, I have the red dot and the line, the red square is where he stands and they stand and shoot, and the red line is his line of fire. And then I expanded that out on the second page. The silver circle and the silver line is his line of fire. And you can see where it's shooting at.
Did you include your phone number or contact information in this?
No, sir, do I need to?
If you would give to James after the meeting?
I will.
Could you also say what your job is?
I am a nuclear security trainer and firearms instructor and have been for over 40 years.
Sounds terrific, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have more questions for?
We good?
Any other questions for Mr. Sutton?
Thank you.
Are there other public comments? Other commissioner comments? Anybody else? All right. Then we are moving on to number 8, which is the discussion regarding development standards. We're identifying areas of strength, weakness, opportunities in the existing ordinances, any enhancement, or any new ordinances that might be needed with regard to those development standards. Before we get into it from this side, let's hear public comments. The first to sign up, Lisa Zambito. And we're going to do these at 4 minutes, and I'll notify you when there's a minute left.
Well, I agree with the previous lady about the development on one.
Yes, sir.
Point of order. Is there a time limit on public comments for specific items? There's not at county council. Is there here?
I believe that we had put that in that there was. Is there not?
It's 4 minutes. It's not on here, it is on for the, non-agenda items, and I would assume that it's covered, but there's not specific.
We're going to try to hold this to 4
I'll
minutes.
keep it short. I just want to comment on what she said. As I read your statement, strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities, I can't think of any strengths of that development, of those 4 developments going up on 183 and 130. Do we have the finalized plan? Do we know, is it going to be city sewer, city water. I, as you can see, work at the hospital, emergency services, fire. The traffic will just be depending upon where the entrances are. I agree with progress, but there's gonna have to be, like Ms. Spicer said in the paper article, it's like putting a city of Walhalla in that tract of land between Keowee River and 130. And 5,000 more people 130 is gonna be backed up for hours. So I can't think of any strengths. I'm mentioning my weaknesses. I can't think of any opportunities other than for the developer and the owner of the land. I hand it to them, but the ramifications of it really need to be thought thoroughly, because a lot of people here don't even know what's going on at the hospital with the migration problem. We're getting diseases we've never even heard of. We're getting stuff that is beyond this scope, but you have to realize the impact to the community. And that's all I'll say.
Thank you so much. Next up, Rhonda Parrish.
Hi, I'm Rhonda Parrish. Thank you all for the opportunity to be before you. We're relatively new to your community. We love it here, beyond words, beyond words. For me, one of the questions as far as development goes, in addition to residences, is commercial development. Commercial development requires, for most commercial companies, public water and sewer. And this lands for this future development, does it perk? Is it gonna happen? Sewer? Is Seneca gonna bring sewer out here? Is Walhalla gonna bring the sewer out here for our commercial development? And I would really hope, beyond words, that as you consider commercial development of this land mass, I understand 61 acres is being allowed for it, that you might consider not putting more car washes or Clemson closet storages or dollar stores, maybe. And so if you avoid those commercial developments, then we're talking about restaurants. They need public water and sewer. Maybe we're talking some retail, public water and sewer would be needed. So for your ordinances and considerations, I'm hopeful that you will consider for us not many more car washes in particular.
Mike Lederer?
Lederer.
Lederer.
Yes. Thank
Sorry
you.
to butcher that name.
That's okay. Thank you all for taking everybody's questions. I know it's never easy. It's always on the receive end, we're on the transmit, so it's a little different. I'm going to reiterate a couple of things, but more, a lot of it's already been said, so I'm not going to go through it again, but the growth in our area is very active, as you all know. And proper and active planning is absolutely crucial at this point, and I think that without question, we have to hold true to our values and what we think is going to be the greatest part for the community. We live in a pristine area. We love it. I think people are happy and proud to be here. And I think that as many other areas have gone through growth, they've had challenges just like we are, but in some cases, they've held true to what they believe and how they're going to monitor it. And some have just let it go helter-skelter, and that's exactly what they end up with. So I urge you, without question, to please put forth the effort and make sure that you have the support of the community if you hold true to the values that we all came here for. One of the pretty important concerns to me is the lake overlay issue. And I understood that the lake overlay was kind of hallowed territory. And in the past, we had some issues here in the not too long ago about lake overlay and how some people wanted to penetrate the lake overlay to accommodate their building, et cetera. I'm hopeful that we don't compromise that, and I'm hopeful that we hold true to what the purpose of the lake overlay was. The county spent a lot of money to establish it, and I'm hopeful that we don't compromise that in any way, because once you do, and you make the compromise, then you basically set a precedent, and who knows what would happen. The density size concerns me substantially. With 5 access points to Highway 130, which is already is a we'll do the proper thing for the community, and I think you'll have the support of the community as well. Thank you.
I'm also going to ask if I could, I know it started out that way, but whether it's whatever district you're in or something about where you live would be helpful, since we are dealing with development standards for an entire county. There are areas of the county that we've got the lake areas, both Keowee and Hartwell. We've got the mountain areas. We've got municipalities, which fall under a different set of rules. And then we have some of the farm and agriculture lands as well. So when you get up to speak, if you would also say something a little bit about where you're speaking from, that also helps us. The next up is Diane, is it Corcoran?
Corcoran.
This on so I can see the timer. Okay, I'm Diane Corcoran from District 1. And I have, I think, a unique perspective because we were recently, had just gone through this exact thing. We had relocated up to Union County in North Carolina outside of Charlotte. It was a rural county. However, and then we moved there in the 4 years that we lived there, it changed drastically. They added a neighborhood with 1,000 homes, which is the neighborhood we ended up in. And then they also added another neighborhood of 1,500 homes. So it was just over 2,000 homes. And just want to kind of give you an insight into what happened in the county over those 4 years. And it's specifically to just that little district that we were in. Traffic. We had traffic study after traffic study. What ended up happening is lots of new stoplights and lots of traffic circles. Because the only way you can handle the traffic in and out of a neighborhood of almost 2,000 homes is effectively they ended up adding traffic circles. So that includes cost and obviously the additional traffic of all the vehicles. The roads, just the impact of the construction vehicles from those homes ended up cracking the roads. The bits would crack off. They ended up having to repave the roads in and out 2 times in 4 years. Schools. My daughter started as a freshman. From the time she started to the time she graduated 4 years later, her class increased by 200 kids. That's just one grade. That meant that the school had to hire the county itself, because it wasn't just in our district, the same was happening everywhere else. They had to hire hundreds of new teachers. They had to build new schools. These are all things that were impacted. We had 2 different redistrictings in that 4-year period because they had so many new kids with these 2 new neighborhoods, they didn't have a choice. They didn't have enough buses. They had to ship kids to school in shifts, which means if you're a high school student, you may get early shift, late shift, but you all start at the same time. So kids would have to sit at school for an hour to an hour and a half before school started, just so they could go back and pick up the other kids. Healthcare. There was the physician shortages because we had so many new people. There were also longer wait times for appointments. You couldn't get into primaries, let alone a specialist. You couldn't go to an urgent care. Right now, if you tried to go down to AFC, down at Signature, like down there, Hartwell Village, you can't get in without an appointment. That's an urgent care. You can't go to a local urgent care here without that. Fire and EMS, we had a massive increase in crime, and I headed up a lot of the property that the neighborhood was in. We had an increase in drugs, and these were homes of 3,000 square foot homes. Lots of teenagers bring lots of drugs, large parties, vandalism, not to mention the effects on the environment in that neighborhood. Our taxes had to increase 50% in 4 years, and it wasn't enough because there was an industry to support the amount of houses that were going in. Because as you know, housing taxes don't pay enough to cover the costs.
Thank you so much. Gary Owens.
Good evening. My name is Gary Owens. I live in Salem, which also is in District 1, and I happen to also be the president of the Advocates for Quality Development in Oconee County. Chairman Johnson, Planning Commissioners, and Director Coley, thank you for the opportunity to make a few comments regarding development standards. Recently, Pickens County revised and updated its development standards and also revised and designed what's called a development areas map that identifies 5 development areas in Pickens County. They are Appalachian Heritage, Agricultural Heritage, Natural Heritage, Community Center, and Gateway Corridor. Within each area, key development standards deal with dwellings per acre, requirements for open space, lighting, parking spaces, and density. These requirements are written in plain English. They are designed to complement the character of each different area, from the Appalachian, by definition, is the most rural, to the Gateway Corridor, which is the most urban within Pickens County. I've made copies of those 5 areas and their development standards for your review, and I've asked James Coley, if he would, to hand out my comments and that copy to you when I'm finished. Before retirement, my responsibilities included strategic long-range planning. My work taught me that our team needed to understand the quote, unquote, now condition before we started making or debating changes and getting mired down into the details and into the weeds. So, we benchmarked our now condition against competitors so that we could identify gaps between best-in-class practices that we could find in the market against ourselves. Only then did we work on a long-range strategy to identify what we needed to do to change to become more competitive. Interestingly, I think Oconee County finds itself in a very similar situation. However, I understand that you as commissioners do not have the time to do the necessary benchmarking and research to tackle such a large project. In addition, the county's fast-paced growth, much of which you're hearing about tonight, is already placing a strain on the planning department staff. Due to these constraints, I'd like to recommend to you that you issue an RFP and hire a development planning contractor whose efforts would be directed by the planning director, Mr. Coley, and his team. This effort is extremely important and timing is critical. With Pickens County's moratorium on new developments, the pace of development in Oconee County is going to speed up. Without updated development standards, the large-scale projects already knocking on our door may negatively impact Oconee County before we have a say in where and how we would like that growth to happen. I'm really encouraged that you're looking at the need for revised and updated development standards. Please engage a qualified development planning contractor to start by identifying our, quote, now condition. Do your benchmarks, identify and implement the important improvements in our standards that we need to make, and I really do think timing is of the essence. That's where I'm remarks tonight. Thanks for listening, and I appreciate the work that all of you do.
Thank you. Linda Lovely.
Good evening, my name is Linda Lovely, and my husband and I are Oconee County homeowners. We are in District 1, but I will say that I am from Iowa, so I do understand the rural needs of the county. Thanks for allowing public comments on the need for updated development standards. Recently, a developer showed Oconee County a sketch plan for a development on some 775 acres adjacent to Highway 130. Even if this plan never goes forward, our county must recognize more large-scale projects are in our future. Updated development standards are one tool the county can employ to ensure such developments add value without creating negative side effects that all of us will live with and pay taxes to fix long after the developers have pocketed their profits and moved on. Tonight, I'd like to focus on standards for landscape buffers, tree preservation, and green space, related topics. Landscape buffers can reduce conflicts between adjacent incompatible land uses. For example, if a residential community is proposed that's adjacent to farmland, a development standard might require that project to include an appropriately sized buffer to reduce conflicts regarding ordinary farm noise and odors that are sure to come without a buffer. Similarly, for a project next to Highway 130, a wide buffer of trees and vegetation could reduce light trespass. That's light shining in neighboring bedroom windows and blinding people driving down 130, as well as adjusting for noise and stormwater runoff during and after construction. Some people will argue that preserving trees or setting aside a certain amount of green space for every 25 acres developed are just costly requirements to gussy up properties. This ignores the real benefits from preserving trees and green space as our county grows. The U.S. Department of Agriculture estimates the net cooling effect of a single young, healthy tree is equivalent to 10 room-size air conditioners operating 20 hours a day. That's one reason that Duke Energy is currently giving away trees. They save energy. Trees provide oxygen, improve air and water quality, conserve water, preserve soil, recharge groundwater supply, and help prevent sediment and chemicals from reaching our lakes and streams. If plans for development cover most of the land with impermeable materials, it traps heat and it causes long-term stormwater runoff problems. Green space not only makes developments more attractive to buyers, it reduces noise, improves air quality, and helps us all live longer. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Is it Kenyon Luce? Oh, perfect. Oh, I
Yes.
thought maybe I was pronouncing it wrong.
No, that's right. It is Kenyon Loose. Very good. My wife and I, we live in Keowee Key, District 1, Salem.
And I just want to say that we have the same concerns that we've heard tonight from many people here. And really, that's all I have to say tonight, but I just wanted to let you, I want to say that. Thank you very much.
Mr. Luce, thank you. Is it Donna Luce?
Yes, he said it all.
Is it Martha, and I'm, Martha Steele?
Good evening. I'm Martha Steele and I live in Keowee 2, just off of Rochester Highway. My husband and I moved to Oconee County in 2001. We truly believe that in the years since we have retired here, that the standards of continued development in the county have become quite challenging and therefore extremely important. The added development over this 23-year time period has certainly impacted the infrastructure, the character of the county, and the quality of life in Oconee County. We are so pleased that the county is considering revising and updating development standards for future development. Please continue to meet the challenges for future development by revising and updating the development standards concerning the number of dwellings per acre, the requirements for lighting, open space, parking space, and density to prevent negative effects that all future development could have on Oconee County. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mark Torres?
I give you my little map here.
Sure. Thank you. No, I'm not going to start you till you get up there.
Good evening, my name is Mark Torres. I think I'm in District 1. I live in East Shore subdivision. We're on the east side of Lake Keowee off of Highway 130, about 3 miles north of Seneca. And I live on an island. Not one of the numbered islands on Lake Keowee, but it is in effect an island nonetheless. It's outlined in green on the map. As you can see, we have Lake Keowee on the west and north. We have the Keowee River on the east. We have the Little River on the south. Water on all 4 sides. It's an island. There are only 3 ways on and off our island. Highway 183 comes over from Walhalla and heads off to Pickens over 2 bridges. And then in the south, Highway 130 goes down to Seneca over the Little River Dam. East Shores is near the bottom here, near the Little River Dam, and in the north we have a nuclear power plant. Right on our island, a nuclear power plant. Now someone wants to put a community on our island with a population greater than that of the city of Walhalla. It's outlined in blue there. Almost 2,000 homes, about 5,000 people, maybe 3,000 cars situated on 770 acres. 5,000 people on 770 acres is 6.5 persons per acre. Since there are 640 acres in a square mile, this means a population density of almost 4,200 people per square mile. The city of Atlanta has an average population density of less than 3,700 people per square mile. This small dense city at its nearest point is 2 miles from the nuclear plant, at its farthest point 4.5 miles. The exclusion zone for the Oconee nuclear station has a radius of 10 miles. So what would happen if there were an event, that's what they like to call it, at the nuclear plant? I know that this is unlikely and that we all have implicitly accepted the risk of something happening there just by living here. But what would be the result if all 5,000 people, plus East Shores, plus the Waterfords, plus the people living up by the Lighthouse Restaurant, had to get off the island at once? 2 of the 3 exits from the island go right by the nuclear plant. You can see the containment buildings from those 2 roads. That means that all those thousands of people would have to evacuate on a 2-lane road over the Little River Dam. Would there be some panicky drivers in that exodus, in a nuclear evacuation? Could there be an accident on the narrow dam? There are accidents there regularly without any emergency. And take it from someone who crosses that dam nearly every day, even a moderate accident would block that passage completely. I'm told there's nothing that can be done. This is an out-of-control area and you have no zoning authority. But this is not a zoning issue. This is a public safety issue. Does it make any sense whatsoever to put a community with a population density greater than that of the city of Atlanta within 2 miles of a nuclear power plant with a single evacuation route highly susceptible to being blocked? Is something like that even done anywhere? Is your emergency management office working on this problem? I understand there's a state emergency management office. Are they aware of the situation if the highway department won't do anything? Are Duke's emergency people addressing the issue? Now, Duke will be conflicted. They sold this property to these people. But isn't Duke in pretty much a perpetual licensing process for the nuclear plant? Don't they begin it almost the day after the previous license is granted? Doesn't this situation have to be factored into that? And have the appropriate federal agencies, the NRC or whoever, been fully apprised of this matter? Have they seen this map? We need your help on this. Let me repeat, this is not a zoning issue. It is an issue that involves the safety and welfare of the entire eastern part of the county. We look for your continued assistance in this matter. Thank you.
John Morey.
Good evening, gentlemen. Ms. Fleischer. I'm John Morey from Mountain Rest. I'm going to give you a quick resume. I worked for almost 40 years in this business. And just to give you a little background, you might be able to relate to this. The planning department where I did my business, I looked it up today. 500 employees. So it's big business, this development stuff. I like to take it back to the basis. As I see it, y'all have 2 books to work with. The Holy Bible and a comprehensive plan. I like to use the Bible first. However, to get to this plan was well developed within the county. And I ask that you consider what you're doing here forth in following that plan. Why development standards? Well, you can go into the nitpicky bullet items of what a development standard does, but I'm going to break it down into an overall situation. We're going to call it quality of life. So, there are 2 groups in our quality of life today. Those that are here today and those that are coming tomorrow. So, let's start with protecting what we have. That's why we have development standards, so that you and I can enjoy what we have today while we commonsensically regulate what is going to happen to tomorrow when these people buy a piece of property. Now, the hot button issue this evening appears to be the subdivisions on 130. Now, the county, as if you've listened to me before the council, I've got a new caveat for you I'm going to bring out tonight. The county standards right now for subdivisions, I'm going to call smash and grab. As I told the council, I believe your standards right now are 1985. Now, you cannot You cannot bring these up to today's standards. There would be a lynching team looking for all of them. It's just phenomenal, the difference between what's going on in this county and what happens in the real world. The big thing missing today is your requirement for a TIA. Now you say, well, we have a TIA required by SCDOT under Chapter 6 of the ARMS for 90 units or more. Their ARMS document has more ways out than it does in. I will offer to you, you hire me for $50, I'll write you a TIA standard in less than 2 pages, and you can shut down that development. All you have to say is adopt the state regs, and this is what we're going to accept and this is what we're not. Right now, the state regs will almost let you off with, oh, well, that was a good idea, but maybe we can waive that. There are several other issues. I know my time's running out. Overall, clear cutting for subdivisions, that should be really pushed back. Your scenic roadway setbacks they're nothing. Outside lighting needs work. Obnoxious land uses you don't even have. Parkland requirements you don't even have. I knew I'd probably run out of time, so I probably have another 5 pages for you. Thank you.
John, do we have your phone number?
That was the deal.
Next up, David Emanuel.
My name's Dave Emanuel. I live in District 1, but I'm on the other side. I live off of Keowee School Road, so this 130 development won't have much effect on me. But it concerns me greatly because of the effect on the county. And I think you need to put in a moratorium on any new developments until you get your land use plan and your requirements up to date. I moved here from Gwinnett County, Georgia. I served 2 years on the Planning Commission in the city of Snellville, 12 years as an elected city councilman. So to me, this is deja vu all over again. The same problems that we faced in Gwinnett County, you're facing now. If you don't get a grip on it now, you're just going to be overrun. In my experience, developers do nothing but lie. They'll tell you, as has been said before, they'll do a road study and they'll say, oh no, there's no traffic will have any impact. We're going to put 1,000 cars a day more, but it won't affect anything. I've heard that, I can't tell you how many times. And I think the long-term planning and definition, I think you need character areas. I think you need a definite process for development standards, as has been said. And it needs to be for the whole county, because once you let a development in, let's say you were to approve this 1,900 home development, that's just opening the door. That's a precedent. How do you turn down the next one who comes in and says, oh, we're only going to put in 1,800 homes? And you just get overrun. Traffic is obviously a problem, sewer, water, and the other problem is cost down the road, because these developers come in, do a shoddy job of most things that involve infrastructure, and they're gone. So 10, 20 years from now, you're out repairing poor roads, poor sewers, septic tanks that shouldn't be where they are, don't have the proper capacity. And every developer will tell you, You know, if we can't put 100,000 homes in 1 square mile, we can't make any money. And that's their theme all the time. We've turned down a number of developments that were just that. The density was too high. You can't stop the development. You don't want to stop the development, but you got to control the density, and you got to control the character of the area so you don't have cities popping up. You really want another Walhalla on 130 because you have the homes, you have the development that'll come along with it, the retail and everything else to support that, and that's just going to make it a nightmare. So I'd advise you to put a moratorium in, get your standards together. If I can provide any of my experience to help you, I'd be happy to do that.
It is numbered.
We're getting close. Linda Traylor? Did I pronounce that correctly? Left? What about Will?
He's already spoken. Well, he spoke on the gun ordinance.
Okay. Gotcha.
They wrote his name on it wrong.
Gotcha, okay. Debbie Allison. No Debbie Allison? Jerry Yantis?
Good evening. Thanks for having me. Jerry Yantis. I'm in District 1. I'm going to go relatively quick. I have got a diagram that I want to share with you all. It's about governance. My interest in this is trying to take care of the whole county and bringing in the need that we've talked about in terms of new ordinances for developments. But how you go about is what's going to be really important. We talked a little bit about bringing a contractor in, external support to help out. We've got a very busy existing staff that are just trying to do day-to-day operations. For them to develop new ordinances is going to be a challenge. The other concept would be to create a task force that brings in some of the expertise that we've heard here tonight, augment with the staff from the planning group, and maybe a couple of you as well on a task force to really work through what the ordinance need to be by area. So we don't apply one ordinance across everybody. We need to do it on a area by area basis, cover agricultural versus lake versus some of the more city or urban areas. And then the third piece would be this idea of bringing in somebody as an advisor, a consultant to work side by side with the planning team and maybe with you all to drive the process. Build a plan, run the plan, hold people accountable, work to dates, get pieces done on an iterative basis. But somebody that's in the back of the boat saying stroke and handling the tiller to get you where you need to go. Otherwise, you end up with another 3-year process of a junkyard ordinance, right? You got to get quicker to get what we've talked about and address some of these urgent items. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Kim Alexander.
Good evening, Commission. Thanks for letting me speak. I'm Kim Alexander. I'm also District 1, but I'm District 1 and I represent our Ag Advisory Board for the county as our chairman. Development standards has been something we've talked about on our board, and I think I'm here just offering, from the ag standpoint, the board, our help in whatever you need. I heard the mention of task force, and I think Josh will attest to this. I think task force are great when you utilize them properly. I think they can do great things and move the process along. However, I think it's a waste of time, money, and a lot of money in the last one, and effort whenever you have you guys sitting here, an audience that's a wealth of knowledge to utilize, and you call someone else in and we threw $50,000 away. I have a problem with that. I think you have a lot of wealth here in what you can do. When it comes to development standards, I think that they do need to be looked at, and we do need some in a lot of areas. I will say this, and I haven't heard this mentioned, but I hope the fees go up for everything that the planning team has to do, the reviews. I don't think our fees are up to date compared to what our neighbors are charging developers. I do think there needs to be a look, and I know they can only be used for certain things, but when you talk about Union County, North Carolina, you have the same thing in Powdersville, South Carolina, in Anderson County, with Powdersville High School already being overrun, and it's only been built 5 years, 6 years. Impact fees need to be a part of our development standards for developers. When they come in and impact a community like this development they're talking about on 130, there needs to be a fee per house, a fee per lot. There needs to be impact fees, and there needs to be development fees. I understand property rights, property owners' rights, but when developers come in, they're coming in looking at us as a business, and they're going to make as much money as they can, and then they're gone. So I think that needs to be looked at differently. Speaking of the NRA, the shooting law, I know that at one time it was requested that the county adopt the NRA standards for gun ranges. And if that would happen, I think there's some other things that could be put in that ordinance that could help these guys with what they need. I don't think that ever happened. When we talk about setbacks and scenic highways, in 1965, there was the Federal Highway Act, and in 1972, South Carolina signed the Scenic Byways Act into law. The issue that we have with our scenic highway, that's our main street, as so many people want to call it, is we have allowed 2 industrial parks, 3 schools. And in that, let me just say, that closes the door for a lot of things that you can do. Because how do you restrict property owners? And one of my neighbors told me, I've owned this land for 129 years in my family, and your family's had it for over 200. I think we know, and I won't use the other, how to take care of the property, and we keep it looking the best we can. So just remember, there's 6 Century Farms sitting on Highway 11 in Oconee County in District 1. Thank you.
Christopher Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, folks, for taking the time to listen to us. And I'm sure this is the beginning of a journey that we're all on with this. And we've covered a lot of ground. And what I want to talk about for the next 3 minutes, 50 seconds is quality of life. And I got a homework problem for you. Check my math, okay? So if you got a pencil, write down what I'm going to share with you on the quality of life. And what I want to talk about is Highway 130 and traffic. Now, I'm not a traffic engineer, but I know how to do some basic arithmetic. If we've got 1,900 homes, plus or minus, coming into a very small area that's going to be visible from space, so to speak, and each of these has 2 cars per family, that's going to give us 3,800 additional cars on Highway 130. Think about that. 3,800 additional cars on an already increasingly congested road from this one project that y'all are considering. Take it a step down. Let's say just 25% of those cars are on the road. And I know the highway studies, and my wife and I also came here from Gwinnett County. Where was the gentleman from Gwinnett? You want to see how not to do things. Take a ride down the road to Gwinnett. That's why this gentleman's here. That's why we are here. It's unbelievable. It's worth a field trip. But if you had just 25% of those cars on the road during commuting time, this is not an average that the road department may look at, but times when people are going and coming to work, that traffic is going to 20 feet per car, 20-foot spacing, which a lot of folks use less, some who use more. That's 38,000 feet, 5,280 in a mile. That's a 7-mile backup. Think about that. On a 2-lane road, and we've talked about you can't widen the road, there's no place to go. That's 7 miles of backup. And if you travel that road every day now, you're beginning to see the backup today. Okay? So check my math on that. 2-lane road, you can't widen it. We've talked about the security, we've talked about the health concerns, the emergency services. Traffic lights. There's 2 traffic lights on that road right now. You're gonna have to add more, which is gonna further slow the traffic with it. Left turns. If you've ever been on Highway 130 and somebody's trying to pull into their neighborhood, make a left turn, everybody behind them has to stop, as they should. How many miles of traffic are behind my wife and I when we're trying to turn in with it? So you're going to have to add those traffic signals, which was going to further push back that traffic. Infrastructure that we've talked about. Who's paying for all this? And what are the long-term life costs of this that we've talked about? I won't reiterate that, but this is our money. This is taxpayer money. And coming from Gwinnett County, everything that gentleman said is true and more with it. The ongoing annual costs, who's going to pay for this, and a second city the size of Walhalla in that small area, it's hard to wrap your head around. On a 2-lane road with 7,000 cars, and that's just the beginning, as someone else said. The gentleman from Gwinnett County, that is just the beginning when you open the door. So I agree. I think we need to take a step back, put a moratorium in place until we figure out what we're doing with this. Thank you.
We've got 2 more comments here. Don Matejka? Don, how do you actually pronounce your name?
It's like take a walk, Matejka.
Well, I did pretty good then.
I'm in District 1, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'll try not to be repetitive and beat things to death, but I just have to add to the previous gentleman about 130. Earlier it was mentioned that the limiting factor are 2 dams and a bridge. Well, if you go past Keowee Key, it's 2 bridges. So 2 bridges and 2 dams, but enough on that subject. Assuming something goes in there, like on this scale, I just estimated you're probably going to have in the neighborhood of 2,000 to 3,000 children. Now, where are they going to go to school? Who's going to pay to build these schools? I have no idea. I'm sure the developers don't give a darn about that. And just an observation, in a previous subdivision that I lived in Georgia, the developer came in and cut all the roads, put in all the utilities, and individual builders were responsible for clearing those lots, or homeowners, as we did, which meant a lot of beautiful trees got saved. Now, both in Georgia and around here, what I see, developers come in, they clear cut everything, and you're either looking at red Georgia clay or red South Carolina clay. They just clear cut it all, and then they plant a few token twigs, which maybe in 20, 30, 40 years will grow up into a mature tree. So, assuming something does go in here, I sure would like to see you folks hold the developers' feet to the fire on this. Why clear cut many, many acres when they could just cut the roads, put the utilities in, and then let the individual builders, homeowners, clear their own lot and leave the vast majority. When my subdivision was finished, we had oak trees in it that were this big. I'm sure that some developers would be just salivating on cutting those things down, but it's just a consideration. So in other words, if something smaller goes in here, why not hold the developer's feet to the fire? And let's have something that we can all live with. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Harry Smith.
Hey folks, I'm Perry Smith, District 2, Mountain Rest. It seems the selfishness runneth over this evening. I'd say we were overrun years ago. The majority of us do not want to be taken care of by the government. We don't want anybody telling us what to do. We're free Americans. I'd like to keep it that way. I don't want somebody telling me what to do with my property or anyone else's. What I own is mine. It's nobody else's. I can sell it, turn it into what I want. What I hear everyone saying today is they don't want our children to have affordable houses. They don't want our children to be able to buy a house and move into it. First-time homeowners. You know, our children, they can't buy a house because they're so high, because there's not any. I say 1,800 houses. I'd say if we could put 4,000 in there, put it. Put it in there. Hey, give our children a chance. Stop with the selfishness. This is what I think. My very own paradise, but not in my backyard. It's a pristine area, but no, not near the lake. Let's preserve that 700 acres, but not ours. This is what I think. If everybody wants to stop this development, pull your money and buy it. Put some skin in the game beside your tongue. This is what I think. Come off your hip. Stop whining about it and do something like buy it. I tell you what, I don't know what this county's going as far left as I could see it. Someone fussing about their neighbors exercising their right to fire a weapon. But I'm not taking away your Second Amendment. I'm all for it. But let me stop you from firing your weapon on your own property. Do you not understand that when you take that person's rights away, you take away everybody's rights? Then you're against the Second Amendment, just like you are right now. Or you could just plant some trees around the property, so you ain't got to look at it. The reason our great law enforcement, which we have a great sheriff's department, can't do anything about it or won't, is because it's not against the law. I would say if it was against the law, they would walk in there and kindly ask them to stop. I was firing my weapon across from West Oak High School. They couldn't stop me. In Willow Ridge, I lived in the biggest house back there. Nobody could stop me from firing it. I was across the road from West Oak High School. Imagine that. But who wants to take away my Second Amendment right? Who wants to whine because their neighbor is fussing for shooting? You're not going to take away my Second Amendment right. If I want to fire on my land, I will. That goes for anybody. You should be able to fire on your own dang property. Stop fussing about your neighbors. If you just, hey, imagine how many big oak trees was cut down for your houses that you live in right now. Imagine that. How many big oaks, how many squirrels' homes was taken because of y'all's big houses on the lake? Boy, deep power screwed this county. Everyone wants to take away the rights of the citizens. It's funny because when yours is taken away, who's going to fight for you? It's coming. It's just a matter of time. Everybody that spoke here today is setting the precedence of, hey, I want the government to take care of me. Let's let the government take care. And by the way, those whatever it is that these people are bringing into Oconee Memorial Hospital, these new diseases, Lord help us. Maybe we should elect a new president, and we ain't got to worry about all these new diseases.
Take a 5-minute recess. That concludes the public comment section. I'm glad everyone made it through it. Please stick around. I'd like to propose a 5-minute recess, though.
I second that.
Look at that. All in favor up here? All right. We'll be back in 5 minutes. ready to reconvene the Planning Commission? I want to thank everybody for coming and speaking tonight. There have been some really good ideas that have been talked about, and that's what we're looking for is ideas. This is not a one meeting and we're done, so it's going to be a process. We heard things such as open space, we heard things such as density, we heard things such as lighting, buffers between unlike kind zoning. We heard about character areas, impact fees, clear cutting and red clay. Over the past 12 months, the topic of development standards has definitely become increasingly popular. And I'm not sure if it was because of the Pickens County zoning overlays, or if it was the new mention of the Keowee River project, or if it was the Sewer South Phase 2, or simply because you were sitting 3 deep at a traffic light on Highway 123. But do be aware that under our development standards that we are planning, and we are the planning department, and we are looking for standards that developers will have to follow moving forward. The Keowee River project, for example, has been a point of conversation for the last 8 years. And it's definitely been a knee-jerk reaction from people here recently. But it's been a discussion for a long time. Phase 1 of the sewer project heading out near the interstate was 20 years in conversation and completed in 2015, I think it was. So I'm glad people are here today talking about standards as we move forward, but that is what we are looking at, standards as we move forward. So I say that because what we're doing today is diving into revamping or enhancing the current development standards that we have. So before I get too far into the conversation, these are our development standards as they stand right now. This is a portion of them. There's still significant more than this right here when you start talking about the electrical and the mechanical and some of the building codes international building codes that we follow. But I just want to make sure that one, we understand that we do currently have development standards in the county, and that we are looking to better those. Current standards that we're going to be talking about, construction of commercial buildings, their access, their parking, whether that parking is morning parking or evening parking or multi-use parking. We're going to be talking about curb cuts. We may be talking about lighting for buildings, signage, lighting for parking lots. We may be talking about development standards that include residential housing, subdivisions, lot design, lot size, structural setbacks, structural height, road design, view lanes, slope and grade angles, stormwater controls. I mean, the list goes on as far as things that make up development standards. Many people have this misconception that development standards or the Planning Commission is simply about approving or denying a subdivision, and that's actually not what we do up here. We are setting the rules that a developer would need to follow in order to build a subdivision. Those rules, many of those rules have been in place and in set for developers who have submitted plans recently or even long ago. But we do want to know, what are the concerns, what are the issues, what are the needs, so that as we do go through and look at this, we are hearing those concerns of the community. Because like it was mentioned earlier, the comp plan, that comp plan is a very important document. That comp plan, we're about coming up on year 5, which will be a revamp of the comp plan or an update to that comp plan. Most of it is going to be about, have we accomplished what we had set to accomplish 4 years ago? But if there are new things that we need to be talking about, that's part of it as well. In the past, we have heard complaints of traffic's getting out of control, or traffic on 130 is unbearable, or I heard the other day I had to wait too long at the emergency room. But when I hear things like that, I'm from the emergency room standpoint, I'm going, okay, is that we have too high a population, or is that we have a problem with our emergency facilities that maybe we need to add to? If I hear traffic is out of control, my first thought isn't that we have too many subdivisions. My first thought is traffic. Do we need to work with the engineers on better lighting or more efficient timing of that lighting or more efficient curb cuts and things like that? So there's a lot of elements that we're going to be discussing up here. I agree that 123 is out of control and traffic is horrendous. I feel like it's Greenville much of the time. But understand Oconee County is very unique in that we have two big bodies of water with only one highway that is able to cut through it running east and west. And that one highway makes a big artery that people have to get down to in moving around. If that's not challenging enough, our county has 8 major grocery stores, 7 of which are all on the same road. So to get groceries in the county, we are converging to one point in the entire county for groceries. So yes, traffic's out of control and we're going, oh my gosh, development's crazy, but maybe there's some other elements that are factors in that. I mean, here's one thing to consider. We're a huge retirement area. But retirees can shop for groceries, but you know, at earlier times or different times of the day, yet you get onto 123 during rush hour, that 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and it's truly peak time for Highway 123. So what we're seeing, if you look at Highway 123 going to Clemson, if you're over in the Shiloh area and see that Shiloh artery, you can tell that we actually have our issue, or one of our issues, is that our workforce housing situation, everybody is commuting home out of this county. They're getting on Highway 123, they're getting on Shiloh to get to Anderson, or they're trying to get over to where there is an affordable level of workforce housing. So when we talk about development standards or we talk about existing developments, I'm probably going to be one that says we may need more development, not less development. And hear me out. If we don't have available workforce housing and they're commuting out, our traffic is always going to be horrendous. Also, the more development you have spread out into bigger areas, at that 5 o'clock whistle or that 3:30 whistle, people are spidering out in the county going in different directions to go home. They're not all getting on the one artery that we have that goes east and west to get out of the county. So when we talk about standards, we're looking at a lot of things for a lot of different reasons, not just that, oh my gosh, there's too much traffic. Too much traffic on 130 is going to be a problem. Believe me, I live on the north side of the lake there. Highway 130 is going to be a huge issue. When you get down to Old Clemson Highway, there's traffic. When you get down by the Ingalls in the Public, it's horrendous. And I would love to see us do something about that. There wasn't a whole lot of complaint, though. There's with all of the other development that's still yet to be built. So, to be clear, when we get into this development standard process, we are asking, development standards are the regulation and oversight by the government for someone wanting to improve their own property beyond the dirt on the ground. So understand right now, we've got construction and building codes, we have international energy conservation codes, we have international fire codes, we've got mechanical codes, international residential codes, and that's if a developer is also adding to the houses. We get in, a developer has to work through Chapter 26. He's got to submit road plans, including topographical surveys showing the natural runoffs, showing the stormwater and routes for surface water runoff. They've got to submit plans with engineered designs of the curvature of the road for the rights of way. Engineered plans for the cuts into the hillside and the fill dirt that's got to go into the ditches. This includes the piping and the vegetation, the erosion control. All of these are within Oconee County's development standards currently. There's standards regarding posted speed limits, there's sight lines, there's view lane distances, there's major and minor collector road accesses, there's grading standards at the point at which two roads intersect, there's standards regarding sediment control. And that's just in Chapter 26. You move to Chapter 32, we've got standards regarding lot size, usable area, drainage, DHEC requirements, pollution preventions. standards regarding the number of entrances a subdivision must have, standards regarding the distance of a neighborhood block. There's standards regarding whether the subdivision will affect downstream drainage. All these things are currently in our standards that developers have to consider with James. Rights of ways, if the water flows outside the subdivision, where is it going? Is it interfering with anybody else? Utility standards, line depth standards, how many fire hydrants, the wastewater facility standards. I mean, the list just goes on and on as to what must be followed. You get to 38, there's standards regarding flag lots, there's standards regarding garage doors locations. There's standards regarding the hedgerow height, the retaining walls, and the location of your HVAC unit are all right here currently being assessed. When your builder built the house, he was having to go through those things. There's standards as to the lot width, the number of dwellings per acre, standards around light obstruction. There's even standards regarding the airflow restriction of neighboring structures. So we have significant oversight as it is, and I don't mean to be callous when I say that do we want more government control, because I would agree that we do need to manage very well what our future looks like. But it is our future that we're currently trying to work on. Whether that's fortunate or unfortunate, I'm very glad y'all are here, and I need to get on the next door list to try to get people here more frequently, because the input is good. And as we plan for the future, we definitely want that input. Here's one other thing to consider, that since 2018, and in real estate, we call it COVID real estate. Since 2018, there were 3,000 lots sold, or roughly sold, that were in existing subdivisions that had been since built on. Just under 1,600 lots were sold around in the lake, in neighborhoods that some of which had existed for 20 years, that are just now being built on. So a lot of this explosion has been in build permits, that we've seen in build permits, has been recently, but not new subdivisions at all. Existing subdivisions that were built years and years ago. James, would you pull up the build permit? We're actually, if we're looking at statistics, we actually have gone down in the number of build permits under a residential category. Now, it's not to say that it'll go down or up or otherwise. What I am saying is I want to make sure we don't have a knee-jerk reaction simply because traffic has gotten bad. Because the truth of the matter is with the exception of Highway 130, Keowee School Road down by the CVS, or Highway 123, there are very few areas that you could sit at an intersection and go, man, that subdivision has really increased the traffic. Matter of fact, on 123, even in its busiest hour, I've still been able to go the speed limit. So yes, at a traffic light, it's an annoyance. But if I'm not being reduced on my speed, have we really hit that capacity and gone over? So I want us to plan, and I want us to be planned, but I also don't want us to have a knee-jerk reaction in that process. So I'm going to open the floor up to where we are going from here is we're going to be talking about ideas. I'd like to bullet point several things that we want to set up for future meetings, and that way we can make determinations. Do we need speakers for those bullet points? Is it something that we're going to be able to handle here? And it'll help us time manage going into the future to say, okay, this one topic is going to take 2 meetings, etc. So if somebody wants to start with some of their things that they would like to see us discuss.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to say, number one, thank you for everyone coming out. Appreciate your input. I think that leads me into saying that some of the suggestions we've had really key in, and I like the idea of having a task force, and I very much like the idea of having professional help. I don't know exactly how Mr. Coley would identify money through possibly administration this year, But if it can't be identified this year, then it should be in the budget for next year for us to be able to have professional help. Because I'll be honest, when I started reading chapter 26 and then I'm getting to chapter 32, I can't remember what I read in chapter 26 anymore. You know, I can't say, oh, that wasn't covered in chapter 38, and now here it is in chapter 32. You know, I'm not a professional planner, and I know I need help. So I think that would be the best way to go about this process. Also, like Jerry's, I think we should consider the structure of the process that we use. And you know, this sheet that we got from Jerry, I think, is something we should consider. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
So just a few questions. We clearly heard from the public that the number one concern is the development, the proposed development on Highway 130, coming from the nuclear plant to Seneca. 746 acres, thereabouts. So the word I have is that the people who brought forward the proposal haven't even acquired the land, first of all. Second of all, they don't have legal representation. And there appear to be a couple of guys with big ideas but no money. So my question is, are we really at the level of urgency that is being portrayed by what we heard from the public?
Yes, be proactive. Get ahead of it. Yes. Get ahead of it.
So at what point, are we going to see, we're not going to see 2,000 houses this year or next year, probably not in 5 years.
Plan for it.
So my question though is, a moratorium seems to me to be overreach.
Do we have evacuation plans yet
We always have evacuation
for that
plans.
number of people?
Not yet.
Right.
But we don't have that number of people. And we're not even close. I guess I hear the public's concerns, but I just want to make sure that we work at a commensurate level of urgency to the real concern, to the real timeline. That we don't knee jerk. That we think this through and work it deliberately, and we'll arrive at the right answer.
As soon as Mr. Nix is through.
Done?
Okay.
So this property on, first of all, hi, and thanks for coming. You guys are my people. I'm District 1 rep on the Planning Commission. In case you didn't know, it's nice to meet all of you, and thank you for coming. This property on 130, it's right, it's been in the crosshairs of a developer for a lot of years. Back in 2010, the Keowee River Preservation Group did own it, did propose plans to build. It also connected with its, there was an ordinance tied to the KRPG group to build, and it was the South Carolina Land Use Act. And in order to have that act be a trigger, I guess you need minimum of 25 acres of highland. As far as I know, this property on 130 has like over 200 acres of highland. So but that act expired in 2020, and so it's not active right now. So maybe that's an idea, get it going if it's not too late. I'm also aware that the developer hasn't gone to closing yet. He doesn't own the land yet. However, and something like that can't really happen without sewer. So that's something we got to wait for or see how that develops. The job of the commission, the planning commission, is to be future thinking and forward thinking. And in order to get ahead of any issue, that's kind of our job. So knowing your concerns, that's good. Knowing what's desirable as a place for a developer to go is good. So we're gonna do the best we can, and a lot of the stuff that Mike mentioned here, I think is old and outdated. That's the other thing I would say. We might have a bunch, but I think a bunch needs to be revised and relooked at. I found an old file that said, I don't know how, the difference between a permit and a plat review, but this was something I found in an old Mike Smith file. In the year 2015, there were 50 plat reviews. In 2022, there are 567. So that's a huge jump in plat reviews from developers. I know your councilman, John Elliott, has put forward his concern about development standards, and he has 3 that he'd like council to look at, and that is the tree ordinance. The concern with the tree ordinance is not only the clear cutting of the land where you're staring at red clay, but it also provides a stormwater maintenance program, because we all know what red clay in the lake will do, right? We don't want that to happen. So trees are important for that reason too. Lighting, to make sure lighting points down, you'd like that. And green space for an acre of green space for every maybe 25 acres of development. And that's not bad. I know that there's a need for dog parks in neighborhoods. As funny as that sounds, an acre of a dog park could be a real selling point for a developer. I know that my son's fiance lives in a neighborhood like that, and there's designated space for a dog park. There's no sidewalks, but everybody goes down there. It's a social sign for dogs and people. So just something to keep in mind. EMS isn't concerned. We did ask, I think we got some acreage maybe designated for fire substation, and that, did we, James?
Potentially.
Potentially. I mean, that's always my first look, is where's the fire station for this thing? So that was a potential first, that was a question, potential might happen. I think that's it for now for me. I think impact fees are an interesting idea. I don't know, that would take a lot of discussion, I think, from the commission. In terms of the first group that spoke with the gun laws and all that, back in the late 90s, I know that people from the Flat Shoals area came forward with some gun shooting issues out in their area. And that's a rural part of Salem, and I know people were doing that, but we are losing. We'd like to keep our rural characteristics, but we're losing our space the more people come in. So it's a fair look to say, do we have a danger, or do we not have a danger, and things like that. So I hope you don't feel threatened in your neighborhood, and I hope nobody gets hurt, and I hope whoever's shooting the gun is taking some care. But hopefully there's good conversation between the neighbors, but we'll see what the sheriff says.
Who's next? Anything that y'all want to add to, things that we need to look into? Okay. I want to add a few things to that mix as we break open this Pandora's box. One, I'd like to fix the setbacks in the current regulations. We right now are working using the same language for flag lots as we do for lots that simply are smaller lots. So I'd like to fix that. James, would you pull up the photo slide, if you would? Just to give people an understanding. So we have a flag lot, as we would identify it, up on the western side. But we also, with the 2 red lines in there, we are working under the same flag lot provision by saying that the lot has to be 80 feet wide before we start a setback. If you'll go to the subdivision that I drew out that has the 3, I think it's set. Nope. Next one. That one. This is typically what we see on a subdivision. You have your 20-foot wide road. You have your 50-foot wide right-of-way, which means that in that 15 feet, that extra 15 feet, you can't plant trees, you can't plant flowers, you can't do whatever because it's owned by the government. And then if you look on the end, flag lots we control by saying that just the setback for the flag lot doesn't start until the lot is 80 feet wide. But we use the same kind of criteria for the pie-shaped lots as well. Rather than at the setback line, we drop them back. So I'd like to bring that up as a topic that we discuss in the future. going back to the previous slide, that was one of the other, and I'd like to talk about private roads and public roads. We're seeing a lot of flag lots that look like this, and I apologize for the rudimentary look, but Ms. Spicer had talked about it the other day as being important. We see inexpensive development done where you've got the black road at the bottom, you've got the 15-foot right-of-way, you then have the 25-foot setback, and between two lots, you then have a long, narrow driveway going to lots that are back in the back. The reason they do that, one, is cost. But now with concrete costs being so expensive, ideally, you'd like to have them bring a road down between those two and have people divided off either side. Problem is, back in about 2006, 2007, for whatever reason, we got lazy and we made private roads under the same criteria as public roads. If you'd get to the next view, private roads or public roads have a 50-foot right-of-way. Problem is the developer can't get in there with either one, clear cutting, as we talked about. He's not able to leave the trees because he's got to get this right-of-way in there, and by our ordinance standards, it says you can't have trees, you can't have roots, you can't have flowers, you can't have fences in that property. If we would take and reduce the private road side down, we might be able to get a developer that actually comes in and builds a road in a more traditional fashion, rather than all the driveways coming out on the main road and slowing traffic or being a dangerous stop. So that's an area that I'd like to talk about as well as we move forward. So those are the items that I came up with that said, I think these are important things for us to talk about in the future.
Can I comment on the flag lot? Could you pull up 3893? Can you put it next to the other picture?
Ordinance 3893?
The picture that's in the ordinance? This came up because we saw a plat on Friendship Road that had about a dozen flag lots in it. And I thought, that just doesn't look right. It's a flag lot to me is a developer trying to inch every dime he can out of his property. Okay, it's his right. However, EMS needs to weigh in on that. I know they're not big fans. And it's just cramming people in there. Where do people park their cars, their boats? They go on the street. I think limit to the flag lot or design things a little different. No, the picture.
Yeah.
Okay. It's 9-3. Yeah, there you go. Can you put that next to the other picture Mr. Johnson put up?
Or that one or the other one?
No, this is right. So the picture on the right is the flag lot that is in our ordinance. And it's in my initial question about a flag lot was that this is in chapter 38. This is not a zoning issue for me. I don't know why it was put in a zoning chapter. It's a land use development tool, and I think it needs to be moved to chapter 32. I don't agree that the picture on the left is a flag lot. There is no skinny long drive, and that picture there doesn't appear to be an interior lot behind another lot. Is that the road that's in front of it, Mike?
Well, the beast tells you have to read what a flag lot is defined as, and a flag lot is defined as a minimum of 30 feet wide, but it doesn't have a maximum under the definition.
The flagpole should be 300 feet.
No.
Minimum is 30 width.
Right. So the minimum is 30, but it doesn't have a maximum under flag lots. So anything that's less than 80 feet would fall criteria-wise under the current flagpole definition.
And I think you're mixing up that 80 feet. 80 feet is designated by the zone you're putting that flag lot in, not that the pure
No, that's
definition of a
correct.
flag
Under
lot.
control-free, there's no distance. You're correct. So are you saying you want to discuss flag lots as a criteria?
I think they should go in chapter 32, not in 38.
Do you want to discuss the definitions and stuff as well moving forward on that?
Versus what we have here? Yeah, I don't know why control-free gets to be exempt from a flag lot. I'd like to hear some justification
So we
for
want to
that.
discuss flag lots. Were there any other items?
Any for you? Did you have that? What?
I just want to talk about density.
Okay.
Densities. I think that's an important thing as we move forward in the county.
I would agree. I had that down here, but I was hoping somebody else would bring it up. And what about you guys?
I think you hit the most critical items we need to nail down first.
Well, let's do this. What I'd like to do is, for our future meetings, we'll start discussing, laying some of these items out as individual topics to discuss. Hopefully some will be short meetings, or we can double up on a couple of topics. And then we can bring whatever information we need to support and say, hey, this is why I think this should change, or this is why I think it should stay, or whatever it is. And if there are additional things, please bring them to my attention as well, so we can make sure that we set up an agenda. Because again, some of these things, potentially all of this, we might need outside support to help. At the same time, I think some of these we can hammer through, at least so that we can give our opinion. If there is ever outside help that comes about, we can say, here's some of the things that we're looking to do. So again, very happy that the public came out, very appreciative of the comments. We would love to see you all at future meetings. Again, we are planning for the future. The current subdivisions in place, the current proposals, they're following the current guidelines. So, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
All those in favor?